Hello guys, today I want to show you everything you need to know to how to work with AWS Kinesis data streams using Python. So for starting, let's see what we have in AWS. We need to have a user, first of all. That user should be able to work with Kinesis. So we come here in the users. I have created this one, Kinesis only user. And if I click on this user, you can see that it has access to Amazon Kinesis full access. And also in security, you should create an access key. If you don't have, I have an access key here, I will use it, but don't share your access key with anyone. So let's go and create the Kinesis data stream. So Kinesis, let's go to create Kinesis data stream. Let's select this one and create data stream. Okay, in here let's say the name of the data stream is my Kinesis data stream. Let's go to provision because one shard is only enough for us, and come down, everything is default, because look at here, the reason that I'm saying is one shard is enough because one shard gives you 1000 records per second. If we go to on demand, it's 200,000 records per second. We don't need that one for this scenario. So we go to a provision, one shard and 1000 records per second. So we come down, everything is the default, and let's create the data stream. Okay, data stream is created successfully. So let's go to the code. For code, I have my editor here, and which is PyCharm. We need to create a producer to put a message into the queue, into the Kinesis stream, which is the same as Kafka. Imagine, if you don't know what Kinesis is, it's something like Kafka. So with the producer, we put something in the Kinesis. With consumer, we retrieve in Kinesis. Okay, so for producer, we need to do some import because I want to write a Flask application for that. So let's say from Flask import Flask request JSONify. Also, we need to import Both03, which is the library that we need to work with AWS. Okay, let's create a Flask app. Flask on module, which is shown by name. And now let's initialize a Kinesis client. So Kinesis client from Both03.client, and we pass what do we need? Client for Kinesis, and then region name. My region is AP Southeast 2, so I will say AP. You can use any region that you want. Southeast 2, and access key, AWS access key ID. Let me copy this one. This is my access key. So we are creating a client here. Then we need to create AWS secret access key, which is, let me copy for this one. This is my secret access key. This one is AWS access key. This one is secret access key. Okay, we need these two to be able to connect to my account. So let's create our RESTful app. So app.route on send endpoint, and the methods are only post method. We only want to listen for the post request on the send endpoint. Now let's define a method or function. Send to kinesis. You can name it anything that you want. Now try. Let's get our message from the request. So let's say request.get JSON.get message. And now let's convert the message to bytes, because the message comes as a string as UTF-8. So we're converting, we say data, we store it in data. Let's say the message which we get here, we retrieved here, that message dot encode in UTF-8. Basically, we are saying that this message that we received, it is in UTF-8. Now change it, encode it to a byte for us. We need to have byte. AWS works with bytes. We are converting the message to bytes. So we say response kinesis client. We want to put record. The record that we want to put have a couple of parameters. Stream name. What is the stream name? The stream name of your kinesis. My kinesis data stream. This is what we want to connect to. And then what is our data? The data is what we just created and transferred. And partition key is partition key. Okay, let me explain this one. Kinesis has different shards. For our example, there is only one shard, but you can have multiple shards. The decision on which shard it needs to put your request comes with this partition key. So it looks at the partition key of this request and does some calculation on that and finds a shard for you. So for example, it looks at this one and says, okay, this message should go to shard 0, for example, or shard 1 or shard 2, because the way that Kinesis works is like Kafka. We have different shards, and these are like queues or pipelines or whatever, and the data goes and sits, our record sits inside those shards, and they are in parallel. So in here, we are saying that use this partition key. It can be any string. It doesn't need to be partition key. We are just passing partition key for sample. If we have a couple of requests, for example, 1,000 requests, and we use the same partition key for them, they will sit in the same shard. If we want different shards, then we should have different partition keys. Okay, so this is how to put our request, because the request sits here. This is how we send the request. Now it's time to return the response that we get from Kinesis. So we say return JSONify sequence number. We want to return the sequence number. From the response that we got here, from the response that we got here, we get the sequence number. Okay. And 200, which is successful. Then we come here and say exception. We want to handle any exceptions as E. If any exceptions happen, then return JSONify error STRE and 500. We are saying that return the error, create a string of that, and with 500. And in here, at the end, we come here and we say if name equals main, then app dot run on what host? On 0.0.0.0 and port 5001. You can use any port here. This means you're on your local host. Normally means all network interfaces. And for local host, I use this one. And here is your port. You can use any number that you want. The default is 5000, but because I have another process listening on 5000, I use 5001. This is for starting the server. Okay, so this is for writing into Kinesis. Let's run it. How do we run it? We come here and we say Python 3 producer.py. Looks like there's a problem here. I know what the problem is. Here we should pass this one as part of our request. Yes. Okay. So when we create the client, we pass the region name, access key ID, and secret access key. It should be part of this method call. I put it down here. Anyway, so let's run it again. What does it say? Running on all addresses. 0000 means all addresses, and we can work with it now. Okay, we can send a request. Let's send a request now. Now that it is up. For sending the request, we can say curl. I type it so that you can type with me, and I'll type slowly so that you can follow me. So x post dash h, the content type is application JSON dash d, which is the data. In here we have message, for example, code with Reza. Okay, this message that we send here is this message that we read here. We send our message code with Reza under this key, and we read it from here. So let me fix this problem here. Okay, so message code with Reza, and we close this one. And what is the endpoint? The endpoint is HTTP localhost 5001. This 5001 comes from this 5001. And the endpoint was send. And this endpoint is this endpoint. And this post is this post. Okay, now let's send. Okay, so something we have done is not right. Let's find the problem with the message. So Carol is fine, -x post -h content type application JSON -d message. Okay, this is the problem here. Okay, look at here. We send a message and it was successful. It says sequence number is this one. This is the sequence number. And this message comes from here. Sequence number and our sequence number, which we can see here. So we successfully put this one into the kinesis. Let's go to the kinesis console and see if we can see it. For looking at this thing, we know we come to data viewer, check the shard, go to trim horizon, and code with Reza is here. So this is our message. If I click on that, look at the body of the message is code with Reza. So what we need to do now is this is the console. We just want to write a code so that we can access this using Python. So let's go to the code again. We don't need this one. We go to consumer. For consumer, it's not a Flask application. We just need both of 3. And we initialize a kinesis client. So kinesis client auto3 dot client kinesis region name AP Southeast 2 AWS access key ID this is my access key ID. You will use your own. And AWS secret access key. And this is my secret. You should have your own. Now we need to get a shard iterator. Look, the shard in so many languages, when you want to go through a list, when you want to have a loop through the list items or array or things like that, you need to get an iterator. Iterator is something, it's a pattern that gives you a pointer. Using that pointer, you can go through the items in your list. Here in Kinesis is like that. We need to get a shard iterator from Kinesis, and using that iterator, which is a pointer to the list, then go one by one, fetch that item. So first we go to create the iterator, get the shard iterator. So response is Kinesis client dot get shard iterator. In here we have a stream name, which is my Kinesis data stream. There is a shard ID. How do we know the shard ID? Let's go to console. This is the shard ID. Shard ID with some zeros. There is a way to get it. I will show you later using the command, but it shows it here too. So I have it here. I can copy. So the shard ID here is, there's only one shard ID, and we need to specify what we want to read from, which shard ID we want to read from. So we want to read from this shard, and this is the only shard that we have here. And shard iterator type, what I want is to read from the beginning, because if I say latest, it doesn't, it might not return all the messages. So when I say trim horizon, then it reads everything in the shard, which is what we need. And we close. Horizon. Okay. Next, from the shard iterator, we create a variable shard iterator, and we get the shard iterator from the response. This is our response. We get a shard iterator, we get a response. Now from this response, we get the shard iterator. Okay, now this is our iterator, which we need to use it to get the records. So let's say, because a producer can constantly add messages to the kinesis, we need a while loop so that we can always look at that and create messages from the kinesis. So let's say while true, it goes forever, and this is our response. It's kinesis client dot get records. We need to pass the shard iterator. What is the shard iterator? The one that we created, shard iterator. And we need to specify the size of the batch. We want to read maximum, for example, 10 messages. So the limit for us is 10. We want to read 10 maximum records in one go. So the records are from here in the response. So we get the records, and we have the records now. Now we need to loop through the records, because these records might be 10 items. We say 10, maximum 10 items, might be 10 items. So we need to loop through that and show one by one. So say for record in records, now we get the data from the record. This is the data, and we also can get a sequence number if we want. Depends on what you want. So from the record, now sequence number. Okay, so from the record we retrieved, for each record we retrieved 2 fields. Now let's print received record with sequence number. Here sequence number, and the data. Now we need to decode, because we want, this is byte. Kinesis works with bytes. We sent bytes, now we read bytes. So we need to change it to UTF-8 string. UTF-8. Okay, when here, look at here, we we get the shard iterator, which is the beginning, the first shard iterator, and using the shard iterator we read some records, and we loop through the records and show the information in the records. But now that we went through all the records, and for example we showed all the 10 records in the batch, what we want to do is to get update our shard iterator and get the next shard iterator, so we can go and using that pointer to retrieve the next batch. Each batch has its own shard iterator. Think of it as a pointer. So we are finished with this one. We need to get the next pointer to the next batch. How do we do that? We say shard iterator equals from the response that we have, from the same response that we got the shard iterator, now we can get the next iterator, next shard iterator, and all this happens in a while loop. So let's run it. Hopefully there is no problem. It was lots of coding. So in here we say Python 3 consumer. Okay, received records, look at here, this is this message. Received records with sequence number, received records with sequence number, this one. And what is the record? What is the data? Look at the data, code with Reza. This is exactly what we send into the kinesis. So this is how you can code using Python, and it's very easy to put things in the kinesis and read from the kinesis. I'm going to show you lots of different parts of interaction between Python and AWS, and goes through different technologies. So if you're finding this video helpful or interesting, it's a good time to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss the future videos. And thank you for watching, and see you later.